would you like to start? Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the ERC Synergy Grants Info Session focusing on the 2025 work program. My name is Madar Hirsch, and along with Jessica Strobeis, we are from ISER, the Israel-Europe R&I Directorate. ISER is an interministerial directorate operated through the Israel Innovation Authority. We are the national contact points for participating in the European Framework Program, and we are also responsible for promoting the participation of Israeli entities in the European Framework Program. Our goal is to increase Israel's scientific and industrial collaboration with the European research and innovation ecosystem. We are very honored to host today Dr. Ágnes Kulcsar from the ERC Synergy. She is the ERC Synergy Call Coordinator at the ERC Executive Agency. Ágnes visited us twice in Israel in the previous Info Days, once at the Weizmann Institute and last year at the Bar Ilan University. But this year we will host her online only, unfortunately. Hopefully next year, again in Israel. We dedicated this specific info session for Q&As mostly. That means that Ágnes will give a presentation, and later on you will be able to ask as many questions as you want. To do so, we ask you to use the Q&A section and write all your questions there. All the questions will be answered after the presentation. An important thing for you to know is that we have participants who are newcomers, first time listening to and learning about ERC Synergy, and very experienced applicants and successful applicants. So please be patient and let Ágnes explain and get everyone on board slowly. I would like also to ask you if you have any comments, please use the chat. Something which is not related to the Q&A, so we could later on gather all the Q&As. And with no further ado, I leave the floor to Ágnes. Enjoy. Ágnes, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would like to start by thanking you again, because it's always a pleasure to be with you. I'm trying to share my slides, and you let me know if you can see them. Is it okay? Can you see all of them?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. I have some banner on the top. I hope it will disappear. If not, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. But so I work at the ERC for the past 15 years, and I'm handling the Synergy grant since 2012. So quite many years, and I've seen it through all the changes. But so if you have any questions about it or any other ERC funding scheme, just let me know then at the end. So I will just give a very brief introduction on our funding schemes and where Synergy lies compared to these schemes. Then a couple of slides about how well Israel does in the Synergy grant call. Then I will focus on the changes on the work program. And of course, then I will explain through this the Synergy grants features and the proposal structure as well. And also focus on the criteria, evaluation criteria, on the whole process, because it is quite crucial to understand it, to be able to write your proposal well for this call, because it's quite different from the other ERC individual calls. And then I will try to give some hints and tips, also what we see in successful proposals and also what the grantees tell themselves. So we have 3 main grants that are targeting individuals. For the younger cohort, we have the starting and consolidator grants. And there, for example, the applicants have to submit PhD documents to situate them in an eligibility window. And then you have the more senior researcher grants, the advanced grants. There, no formal eligibility requirements are needed regarding the PhDs. As you can see on the screen, they have different grant amounts that they can ask for 5 years. And then you have the synergy grants where you have a group of principal investigators, 2, 3, or 4, that can be of any career stage. And we see all sorts of career stages really applying. And then, of course, that we have the proof of concept call that is available only to ERC grantees. So how well does Israel do? As you can see here, that's the last year's call. Israel does very well. So there are in 6 different funded proposals. You have Israel researchers. And if you look at the PIs, the number of PIs, because in the synergy grants, you can have 2 PIs or 3 PIs or 4 PIs coming from the same institution or from the same country. But in our case, what we are seeing that these PIs, they are in fact in 6 different grants. So in the success rate of the Israeli PIs, it's quite high. It's higher than the average. So what about the next call? Today, we are 3rd of July, and if everything goes fine, then we are opening the call for new submission on 11th of July, so in about a week's time. And then the call will be open for your submissions until 6th of November. We have about 500 million euros, and I will explain what that means in one of the next slides. So what are the novelties? So when you are applying, of course, I will present you the structure of the grants, but what is really changed since 2024 for all grant schemes in the ERC is that the CV and track records are changed. They are combined and they are simplified, and this was done to allow a broad assessment of the principal investigators. So in total, there are 4 pages for each of the PIs that they can put forward in their application, in which then they list their chosen 10 research outputs that demonstrate how good they are in the field of the proposal that they put forward. Of course, it's good if they concentrate on the recent achievements, and they can provide a list of selected examples of prizes or other types of peer recognition. Then the other novelty is that they are able to add a short narrative description to put this information into context. So to explain how significant these outputs are in the context of your environment, in the context of your research, your role in producing them. And in case a PI had a career break or an unconventional career path, for example, going to industry or going completely out of research and then coming back, that is welcome if you can explain. And any other exceptional contributions to the research community are also welcome. Then the other novelty is mainly for the individual grants. If you look at that, they introduced a new scoring at step 1, which is called A not invited. In Synergy, this does not affect the results, neither the resubmission restrictions for the upcoming year. It was mainly done to accommodate issues in the individual grant calls. In Synergy, what needs to be kept in mind that if someone gets a C score at the very first step, then they are not allowed to apply for the upcoming call and then the next one either. So only in 3 years' time they can apply to the Synergy grant call. There is no restriction to applying to other individual calls. And then the individual calls also have this capping on how many proposals they can pass to step 2. We do not have this one in Synergy. I will explain how the limits are done at each step in a later slide. But there is a significant change in 24, and we are still adapting to this change, where it is said explicitly that the project has to weigh more than the CV and track records of the applicants. So it's not quantified how much more. This is left to the panels, but this is made more explicit. So in the past, not all panels worked in the same manner. Some applied the 50-50 type of weighing, some put more emphasis on the project. Now all panels are invited to weigh the project, the idea more than the principal investigators. And in this sense, also the evaluation questions have been revised. For example, for a very long time, we had a question in the evaluation forms on how high risk and how high gain the project is. And also another question on what type of novel methodologies have been developed. So these two have been taken out. This does not mean that the panels are not looking for these high risk, high gain aspects. They do. They look in the context more of the ambition, of the groundbreaking nature. And of course, it's good if you have a good risk assessment in your proposal. But here, because this question was not that well understood by the reviewers or not applied in the same manner, then the council decided that it's not the best question to have. And if you want to see the justifications of why these changes are done in the evaluation process, in the track records, then you have some statements on our website that the Scientific Council, who are our ruling body of 22 scientists, decided to do. So design of the Synergy grant call. And I write here, funding on the adoption of the work program. So the good news is that the work program has been adopted. It's not official, not public yet, but we know that everything is fine with it. Therefore, I can then with assurance say that we will have 500 million euros for the next call. For the current call that is under evaluation, oh, and I see that I made a mistake here. In fact, you should read Synergy Grant 2025 in one of the boxes, not 24. So it's 25. We have a call budget of 500 million euros. For the 24 call, we had 400 million euros. So we will have more money, which will allow more grants to be funded with a normal grant size of up to 10 million euros, regardless if there are 2, 3, or 4 PIs. And it is possible to ask for an additional 4 million euros for up to 6 years. And again, this 4 million, it's a global envelope that you can ask regardless if there are 2 or 3 or 4 PIs in the grant. And for example, the description of these additional funding, it is written in the work program or the information for applicants. It is mainly for big equipment or access to infrastructure or establishing a lab, for example, if someone moves from a country which is outside of EU or associated countries to one of these countries, or field work. In case of field work or other work, personnel costs are not in this one. Again, these are quite well described in all the legal documents and the documentation that I really advise you to read when you are applying to the Synergy call. In host institutions, they, in general, for all the ERC, have to be in the EU or associated country. Israel is fully associated to the program. So you can have as many Israel host institutions in your grant scheme as you want, with the additional bonus that you can have a PI applying with a host institution that is outside of Europe or associated country, but only one, and it cannot be the corresponding one. There is no restrictions on where these people can be. They can be in the same corridor or very distant locations in the world. What is important is that for those people, for those PIs who come from the EU or associated countries, they have to spend their research time, more than 50% of their research time in EU or associated countries, and their working time on the project must be at least 30%. This working time requirement of more than half of your time in Europe or associated country does not apply for the PI that is applying, for example, with a United States host institution. And it's a 3-step evaluation compared to the 2-step of the normal grants, and I will go into that, what is different. So the features of this grant scheme, at the core, always there is a very ambitious research problem. And that research problem cannot be done by a single PI alone. If it could be done alone with additional partners, additional team members, then you should think of going to an individual grant. You have to somehow demonstrate in this grant that it can only be done through this joint effort of the PIs, and that the know-how of the group, the combination of the researchers, have to really complement each other. And if that is not there, if it's fully not there, then it will never be successful in the synergy grants. I mentioned it already that the PIs can be at the very beginning of their career, or they can be at the very end of their career, and it's fine to team up. What is important to know that there is equality among the PIs. They are named in the grant application. They can take their grant part and go to another institution if they want to. So the portability of the grant applies to each of the PIs. There is a designated corresponding PI in the application. From what we have seen, this is often more an administrative burden because it is the corresponding PI and the corresponding institution that liaise with the institutions, gathers the reports of the other PIs or other team members, does the reporting towards the agency. It is also expected that all PIs remain part of the group because it's so important that this group is tight-knit and they are essential to the grants that they cannot just leave the grant. So if they do, then the project risks of being re-evaluated. And then the panel can see whether it still stands. It cannot be replaced. We never had a case when a PI was replaced in a synergy grant. What is not a synergy, and maybe it's easier to formulate what is definitely not a loose cooperation between PIs, and it's not a simple passing of data or information. So again, all of them have to be very complementary. I've often asked whether the synergy grant have to be interdisciplinary. No, they don't have to. So we have proposal, for example, in quantum physics or genetics, or in other fields as well, where the core problem, the narrative, the story, it's addressed by very complementary expertise, theoreticians with experimentalists or different type of aspects of the project. It is also true that the majority of the projects are very interdisciplinary, but it's not a requirement. I think the ambition of the research and the composition of the group and how they address that is more crucial. So what is the structure of a synergy proposal? And as soon as we are opening it on 11th of July, I invite you to go in the system, register, and see how the forms look like, and don't leave that to the last minute. But basically, there are two parts of it. There are the administrative parts, that these are called A forms, part A, and there are the B parts, the actual proposals that are read by the panels, the administrative parts, as well as other annexes, such as, for example, the cost commitment letters of the host institutions are not read by the panels. They don't have access to it. They only have access to part B1 and part B2. The part B1 is a short synopsis of 5 pages, and then you have 4 pages per PI of curriculum vitae and track record. And at the same time, when you're submitting the administrative parts and all the other annexes on B1, you are also submitting part B2, where in 15 pages, you are required to describe the state of the art, your objectives, the detailed methodology, and of course, the resources. The justification of the resources is in part B2, but now, starting from this year, we are providing an Excel table in the submission system to help you do a better budget breakdown. We have noticed that almost half of the applications have errors in the budget table. So we are trying to help applicants with that. So definitely check out those templates when you start writing the application, because in the template, you also have text describing of what you are required to fill in. And definitely check out the guidelines in the information for applicants. I hope already it will be done on 11th of July as well, which gives you indeed a lot of details how to fill them out and what to pay attention to in the forms. This is a complex table on the resubmission restrictions for the next year. Again, important here is that in case you received a low score, a C score in step 1, then I just have a window here. I'm trying to move. I cannot, sorry. Yes, fine now. So if you receive the C score in step 1, then those applicants are not able to apply to the 25. But regardless of the score that one received in the individual grants, or in step 2 or step 3 in previous Synergy applications, the PIs are able to apply. Now, if you are a grant holder, keep in mind that for every ERC grant, one can apply within 2 years from the call deadline. So the running grant has to end within 2 years of the grant application. Because our deadline will be 6 November 2024, it means if you have a starting COG, advanced, or previous Synergy grants, then it has to end before 6 November. It can never be that a PI has 2 running ERC grants in parallel. So one has to end before the other one can start. And again, when you are looking for eligibility, then check out the call year in the call description. So for example, again, the denomination of the Synergy for the upcoming call is Synergy 2025, and we are in 24, middle of July. So it's not the calendar year that matters, it is the call year of the work program, of the call description. And I'm emphasizing this because we have several applicants who are applying, for example, for the Advanced Grants 2024 call that is now open for submission, and they plan to apply for the Synergy Grants 2025, which overlaps a lot with the Advanced Grant. Now, because in the name of these 2 calls, it's a different year, you can apply to both. However, if you are successful in the earlier grants, so Advanced Grants 24, and in case you sign the grant agreement, then you become ineligible for the Synergy grants. So we are monitoring these applicants, and we are contacting them and are asking them to wait with the signature of their Advanced grants before knowing the results of the Synergy grants, because the group risks of losing a precious member in their grant application. So about now the evaluation criteria. I just tried to still, I managed to move it. I hope it's better for you now. So about the evaluation
yes, it's better,
criteria. It's better, okay, I moved it to the other screen. Only one thing matters in general in all ERC calls is the quality of the research project and the quality of the PIs. When you are preparing, again, read the evaluation questions in the information for applicants in the work program to know exactly what the reviewers are looking for. They are looking for the groundbreaking nature, how your proposal is positioned with regards to the current research, what are your scientific approaches, what is the synergetic aspects. In the 5 pages in part B1, which is evaluated in step 1, they are only assessing the feasibility of the project. The detailed methodology is only addressed in step 2 and 3. And of course, the budget and resources are not looked at all in step 1. And then, of course, the group of the PIs matters as well. Let me introduce you to the evaluation process. So as I mentioned, it's a 3-step process with interviews with all PIs in step 3, and the PIs are required to come to Brussels. And in very, very rare occasions, in case of illness or another very significant impediment, in case a PI cannot come, that could be fine. But otherwise, if someone is absent, that is not very good for the panel. They don't appreciate that. So what's happening? So when you are applying to a single panel. So that's contrary to how the individual ERC calls work, because there an applicant chooses a panel out of the 28 that exist, separately different ones. For example, there are 11 ones in physical science and engineering, there are different ones in life science and different ones in social sciences and humanities. Here, you are not applying. You're applying to a single panel. You are only choosing keywords and abstracts, and you write an abstract that targets a single panel. And then when we have all these proposals, for example, in 24, in the current call, we had 548 proposals. Remember, at the end, we fund around 50 proposals. So there is a success rate of around 10%. So all these proposals come in, then we have 5 chairs. These chairs meet, and then they assign proposals to panel members. And then the remote phase of reviewing starts. And in this remote reviewing phase, we will have around 90 panel members. PM stands for panel members. PEV stands for a panel member, panel evaluator, panel member serving in another ERC call. So imagine that these 90 panel members have to cover all scientific and scholarly fields. It's quite impossible. So even though they have to act as generalists in step 1, it is still a very difficult task. So we are using, therefore, quite many of panel members of other ERC calls to help out reviews in step 1. And all these people, they are really looking from a generalist perspective on your proposal. And that's really important to keep in mind. You probably will not have close specialists in step 1 at all. So in general, then there will be around 5 reviews per proposal. And then what happens is that once all the reviews are handed in, then around January or February, I think next year, then there will be a meeting. And in the meeting, there will be only a handful of experts. In 25, we will have 14 experts, 5 chairs and nine vice chairs sitting around the table and discussing in 4 days all these 600 proposals. So it's a very high-paced meeting, around 3 minutes per proposals to discuss. And they have to filter this down and to pass about 7 times the call budget. Now, to put in perspective what this means that around half of the proposals are rejected at step 1 and half pass to the next step. But again, imagine that these generalist experts have to decide based on the remote reviews whether a proposal passes to the next step or not. Then what happens is, as soon as these meetings is over, the chairs sit down and then they form together with us in the agency 5 panels. Now, this will be different for the 25 call, but until now, we had always 5 panels, 2 mainly looking at life sciences, 2 physical science engineering, and 1 social science and humanities panel. These were very interdisciplinary panels. And when we are in that stage, then both part B1 and part B2 are evaluated by these panel members, these around 90 panel members, and then specialists. We call them remote referees or external reviewers. There are different words for that. But basically, they have to complement and give and cover quite well the different aspects of the proposal. So in the end, in general, every proposal will have between 8, 12, sometimes even 15, 16 reviews per proposal. And then once again, this remote phase is completed, then all panel members come to Brussels. They gather in these 5 panel, different panels, and then they discuss the proposals. And they pass around 3 times the call budget. So I'm emphasizing the 7 times or 3 times because that's in the work program. That's how much we are allowed to pass from one step to another, which again means cutting by half the projects that remain in step 3. And then there is a remote phase again in step 3. For the 24 call, we just started this remote phase because we had the step 2 evaluation finished 2 weeks ago. We just informed last week the applicants quickly about their results. And now we invited the PIs for the interview. There are no new reviews written. The panel members, though, prepare throughout the summer because they are looking again at all the reviews, and they are writing jointly questions for the interviews that you will be asked. And then at the interviews, then again, these panels are interviewing. What is important and very special in the Synergy grants that although there are different panels, of course, there are proposals for which the best experts are not in that panel where the proposal is allocated to. But in all cases, we make sure that a panel member who sits in a different panel participates at the discussion of the proposal. We are calling them cross-panelists. And imagine the exercise, because we had, for example, about 280 proposals in step 2, and half of these or even more, have cross-panelists. And we are really timing and synchronizing the discussions in all the 5 panels to allow that panel members from one room goes into the other to discuss, and then maybe to even come back and to rediscuss a proposal if need be. So for step 3, for the interviews, again, there will be panel members popping in and out in every room in a synchronized manner to ensure that the best experts are always close and available in the room. What is changed for the 25 compared to previous Synergy grants? The workload is so high in this step 1 that we realize that we have to increase the number of people, of experts in the room. So we will have 14 then deciding on the proposals. And then we have now the other novelty that we will have the flexibility to decide whether we go for 5, 6, or 7 panels in step 2, and also then to rearrange them for step 3 if needed, depending on how many proposals we have, what type of proposals stay also in evaluation, and what is the expertise of the panel members. So these panels will be very interdisciplinary. It's very unlikely that if you are, for example, resubmitting, you will end up with the same panel that you were last year or 2 years ago. That's already unlikely in the current call even. And then the other change that we have is because we also have a higher budget. It's to then pass to step 3 a bit less than was possible to pass now. We had the 4 times to passing rate from step 2 to step 3 until now, because the UK was not part of the associated countries. So we didn't know how many proposals will drop out in the end, but now it's not the case. The UK now is fully associated with the program, so we don't need the same approach as we had in the past 2 years. Who are the reviewers? So in step 1, around 90 panel members. These are for the past calls, so the Synergy 23 calls. So just an overview, we have experts, you see the distribution mainly. They are from physical science, engineering, social sciences and humanities and life sciences. And we have then these panel members. Again, these are generalist perspective. And then in step 2, besides these generalists, we have a lot of remote referees, these external reviewers. You can see the number of acceptance that's in green. So about 1/3 of all the people that we invite, and these people only provide 1 or maximum 2 reviews for the ERC, actually accept to review for the ERC. So around 1/3 of the people invited accept to review and deliver a review. These are unpaid experts. And this is quite a general statistics for all the ERC calls. Now, because we have so many, just if for example, in 24, we had over 6,000 people invited to provide a review just for a single call. So it's really the exercise, it's incredible, both from the panel members side and both from the agency side, to provide you the best expertise and the best evaluation that you can have. Now, the last part of my application, of my my webinar, it's addressing the hints and tips in how to prepare an application. I already emphasized quite a lot that the panel members in step 1, they, and all the reviewers, the panel evaluators as well, they only see the 5 pages of your proposal. So make sure that it's written in such a manner that it's accessible to non-specialists. And that's really true for the abstract. Write it in such a manner that it's easy to allocate it to the right experts in step one. So the way you choose your fixed or the non-fixed keywords and your abstract and how you write B1, it's quite essential on how well we can allocate your proposals to panel members. Pay attention to how groundbreaking is your research project. If it's just an incremental step, if it's just state of the art, that's absolutely not enough, especially not enough for the Synergy grants because it's very competitive. And make sure that you have the best people of the group. So don't go strategically here. Do I need people to be women or men or be geographically from this country or that country? It doesn't matter. It matters, it's the combination of the scientific elements, combination of their expertise, the know-how of the group. Know well the state of the play of your research and understand why and demonstrate why your idea is so outstanding compared to that, and make it in an easily accessible language. Just concentrate on the feasibility and make it believe that you have some sort of risk assessment. So if you plan to go on Mars in 5 years, then demonstrate it that you can do it. It's not just a dream. Now, what about the differences in part B1 and part B2? Again, note that you are writing them at the same time, but it's looked at different times at the reviewers. But in step 2, both part B1 and B2 are seen together. So don't ever think of just simply repeating the synopsis in part B2. And then provide sufficient detail on the work plan, on your methodology, on what type of case studies you have. The references, the resources section do not count toward the page limits. Make sure that you are justifying the requested resources. And don't just think that that's an administrative business. No, you will be handling these huge resources. Think about it, that you are able to even transfer them to another institution if you need be. You need to know how many people will work on it, what kind of infrastructure you need to do that. And do pay, please, attention to the calculation. So I hope that with the new annex, the new Excel table, which automatically calculates the amounts, we will see fewer mistakes. Now, one of the issues that is raised often that we are seeing in the Synergy grants, besides of the 5 PIs, additional team members participating. So these are team members that are not in the immediate group of the PIs, but belong to other partner institutions. They will complement the work. They will do sometimes quite significant work in the grant, but if they do, and you put them in the grant application, then make sure that you are very clearly explaining their involvement. Their budget, for example, goes under the budget of a PI. And then there is the funding ID, where you are describing also the type of grant applications similar to this application you have, or any other application that you had. So summing up these hints is have an exciting idea that excites the panel when they read it. Again, keep in mind that in step 1, they might read around 50, 60 proposals. So the effort, so help them seeing a good proposal, well-written proposal to be able then that they can judge it well. So the tight-knit small group of PIs, that is very essential, and that keep in mind again that the PIs are equal in the project. Get in time a letter of support from the host institution. When you apply, so when you log in the first time in the submission system, then you will have the possibility to download the templates, for your application. So part B1, part B2, host support letter, the budget table annex. Make sure that you have this support letter in time from your institution. check the resubmission restrictions. And I emphasized already that the way the keywords and abstracts are written, it's important, especially when we assign it. And it's because it makes, again, the life of the people who are assigning the proposals, who are evaluating the proposals, easier. Be very familiar with evaluation criteria so that the reviewers can find the answers to all these questions in your proposal. And the other advice that we heard from many grantees is to get sufficient feedback from your peers. So have it read by experts that are close to your field, but also maybe to people who are not that familiar with your research. And if you pass to step 3, then all these grantees, they said that they had a great number of mock interviews to prepare for step 3. They even prepared a lot of questions in advance. So they thought of all sorts of questions that the panels can ask and prepared with that as well. We also heard from grantees that sometimes they underestimated the obstacle of different scientific languages, especially when you are thinking of a very transformative field, of merging fields. What do I mean here? It's that, for example, a catalyst, it's different in chemistry, different biology, different in physics, and even learning different ways of doing it takes time. So in very, very interdisciplinary projects, the grantees themselves said that it took them 1 or 2 years and they really understood what the other teams, how they work and what they do. And definitely do submit your research proposal well before the deadline. You can resubmit it several times. We only get to see the very last version. So don't leave it to the very last day. I'm only emphasizing this because we are seeing the majority of researchers starting to fill out the administrative forms. Although they are easy, they're not that easy. And sometimes you might run into problems and it's not that trivial on how you go back and forth between the different steps of it and what you need to complete. So be sure that you are filling out in time these forms. It's a very competitive call. We will have a success rate of 10% in this year. So make sure that it's a joint effort that you are putting there. And again, I'm emphasizing that the synergy, it's not a loose consortium and it's not the end goal. So it's definitely just a means to achieve the end goal, where the end result has to be just more than if you consider it separate parts. Because if it would be just a mere sum of the parts, then you can think I'm going to an individual grant. That's not the case here. This grant, this slide just shows you on how successful are people who apply for the first time or reapply. So for example, you see one of the columns, all evaluated, that gives you a success rate in 23 of below 10%. And if you look at the very right-hand side, where you have previous synergy applicants, then we see almost a doubling of success rate. So if someone was previously already an ERC grantee, of course, they know already how to apply. They were at the quality to be judged good enough for an ERC grant. But we are seeing this as a learning exercise, that it's worth writing your grant application, even if you don't succeed, because it helps you put your ideas on paper. It helps you put your research in context and preparing for the next 6 years at least of what you want to do with your dreams. So when you are preparing, the first homework is to consult the information for applicants, the work program. Look at the ERC classes. There are videos on our website on how to write a grant application, but also we have, I think, 4 videos on synergy grants where the grantees, they explain what they do and what means synergy for them and why they apply for synergy. And I would also advise you that on our website, go and look for funded projects, see what type of people are applying and also what type of research is funded. we don't have priorities. We don't have specific fields that are in fashion and then we are funding those. No. So be convinced that your idea is worth pursuing. And then just, again, because of your state of the art, your context, just be sure that it's not funded already in the ERC. Register early in the funding and tender portal. This FNT portal is the gate to every type of research application in the EU. And definitely have your documentation ready. And if your NCPs cannot help Jessica and Smadar and others, or your institution's research office, then do write to us. So we are here a team helping with any question you might have. And because this is a group application, make sure that you have the consent of your collaborators. In the submission forms, you have a tick box, just saying, are you sure that you have the consent? And again, I'm emphasizing this because we have thousands and thousands of projects in our database of the ERC, and we are comparing every application. So we are seeing, for example, proposals that are recycled or the group is changed, and we are comparing them. And in every case, we are going back to the applicants and asking them, but is the other applicant aware that their idea is submitted to the ERC? So we are doing a lot of checks on the proposals, on eligibility, on the content as well. So that's it from my side. Please feel free to contact me or the applicant mailbox in case you have a question. And now I stop sharing and looking forward to any question you may have.
Thank you very much, Ágnes, for this elaborated and very detailed and very clearly explained presentation. We do, however, have a few questions. And while we answer these questions, while Ágnes answers these questions, please feel free to add more questions. And I see that there are a few. So we will start with the first one, with your permission. Joshua Goldberg actually commented, and it is also a question. We applied last year and were told that it is really important to stress why there is synergy in the team. In fact, a very senior Israeli scientist said it is all they care about. But in the end, it seemed like the critiques were scientific, like any other grant, and not so much on the synergy aspect. So it is a comment, but I would appreciate your comment on that. Thank you.
I fully concur with this comment. The scientific aspects matter a lot more. Again, I think I emphasized already in my presentation that the synergies are a means to that. Now, scientifically, it could be very interesting, but maybe the expertise of the team is not there. And then it may fail. That's a different thing. I mean, they say, maybe you are missing a biophysicist for this particular aspect in your proposal that is very important for your idea, and then it doesn't fly. But the emphasis is always on the science, always. The synergy is just a bonus, an addition to that, to achieve it.
Thank you. Anonymous attendee asked, is it true that when invited for an interview, you may always be ranked too low to actually pass, or too high that the interview won't matter?
Oh, it's so false. It's so good, this answer. Thank you so much for this. The interview matters enormously, enormously. Why? Because the quality of the applications that we are seeing now over the years, it's matured. They are very good. Already, all those proposals that in step 2 are worthy of funding. There's no ranking. They even take out the scores and everything from the reviewers. So just the comments of the reviewers matter, and your performance actually at the interview. So definitely the interview, we see a huge upheaval on we thought it's very good before in the previous steps. So it does matter a lot. Don't even think that you cannot, otherwise you wouldn't be. And in the other ERC grant schemes, the applicants are behind their screens, so they're interviewed online. That's not the case in the Synergy grants, where it's so important that the panel judges you how you are then delivering in an interview, how you are acting, not acting, but how you're interacting with your fellow PIs, whether if there's a very dominant PI and the others are not, that again, it looks a bit, it raises questions for the panel on actually the roles or the quality of the PIs. So the interview matters a lot.
Thank you. Chile Abergel asks, can the PIs be from the same institute?
They can, absolutely they can. But again, see why you need exactly those people on your application. What we are seeing is that generally in the vast majority, we see different institutions, different countries, but we have no requirements whatsoever. But if they're in the same institution, you probably have collaborated with them a lot in the previous years too. So make sure that what you are proposing is not just a simple continuation of your previous work with your close friends or close partners. So make sure that you are making that step change very evident in your grant application. But they can be, of course, from your institution.
Thank you. Adam Abelson asks, do PIs need to have worked together previously? You just answered it.
Yeah, maybe I can comment with that because we are
Yes.
seeing all sorts. So we are seeing people who worked before together already. And of course, that comes out from their publications. They are describing their background and what they did together. And we are seeing people who never worked together. So again, if you have worked together with someone, make sure that this is not, again, a continuation. And if you work with people that you've never worked, again, you have to make the effort of making the panel understand why you think it could work. I mean, don't underestimate that this is an endeavor where you actually really have to work closely with people for at least 6 years.
Thank you. Claudia Goldman asks for a clarification about the deadlines for the ERC Advanced and the ERC Synergy for 2025. It will be provided in the presentation because there was a mixture. So that will be set when we send you the presentations to all the ones who registered to this event.
The only thing that if I just may add, Smadar, that
yes,
the 24 deadline are not there because I was talking about the upcoming calls of the 25. So the current advanced grant 24 is now open until the end of August. Yeah, but that's the 24 call. That's on the slides. You will see the deadlines for the 25 call. And for calls under the same work program, you can apply to only one type of grant. So the first one is eligible. All the subsequent ones, you become ineligible.
Thank you, Ágnes. Anonymous attendee asks, can you please say again, what is the success rate?
It's around 9–10%.
Thank you. Michael Lazaros asks, if a PI has to leave the project, is it reevaluated from scratch? What are the criteria for reevaluation? What are the chances of the project continuing to be funded?
Well, we had less than a handful of cases over the past 10 years. When we had a PI leaving, we had a case when a PI died. So again, every case it's evaluated individually. The evaluation criteria do not change and is judged then by the agency of who actually evaluates or what is being done by that proposal. We are always trying to seek solutions, but it's again, if a PI just simply says, I'm going out of the project, it might crumble. But we don't have other criteria than what is there in evaluation. But it's no longer the same. So just think of that one person is no longer there. So you are missing a chunk. So how then the rest of the group can do it? You know, that's a very big question.
Thank you. Moania Sumer asked, can you please elaborate on the concept of team members? Can they be researchers that will have an active ERC grant?
Okay. it's a very delicate question or answer that I'm giving now, in the sense, don't shortcut it just that because you want to apply for an ERC grant. Why I'm saying that? So a team member, it's a group, a person, or a group with that person who has to do a part of the work that is not that essential, where you are not necessarily advancing at that level the scientific knowledge that you would do as a single PI. So again, they can be from the same institution or they can be from others. We have seen that the panels instantly recognize that in case you have, for example, 4 PIs, and then you have a fifth one as a team member who cannot be a PI because it's more, for example, than the maximum allowed number, or it's because that person already has an ERC grant, so cannot be called a PI. They don't like that at all. That's not the idea. The idea here is that you go with a scientific concept idea where you need at core only those people that are PIs. They are the ones who are judged. They are the ones who are delivering the CV and track record, not the team members. Team members can be a lesser thing, for example, that cannot be done in one of the group of the PIs, and then you need to subcontract it, or you need some additional expertise to carry out fast. That's not a significant part. So don't apply just because you want to have more money from the ERC.
Thank you, Agnes. Very clear. Ariel Chipman asks, are the applicants interviewed together or separately?
Oh, definitely together. That's why they have to come to Brussels, to even physically be close to the panel so that they see even your body language. So it is super important that you are all here at the interview and you can be seen together.
Thank you. An anonymous attendee asks, if we feel we need a critical specialist partner who is not a PI, can she come to Brussels for the interview, paying their own way?
No way. No way. Just the PIs. So again, a critical specialist partner, then why it's not a PI? Then if it's just a small thing, a critical part, then you, because the partners should belong to one of the PIs. So their budgets go under one of the PIs as well. In part B2. Now in the part A, you have separate lines per beneficiary, but it's a different matter. The PIs, you as a group, should explain that part very well, and their involvement and their need of that partner in the project.
Thank you. Ken Winchell asks, do past recipients of individual grants have a higher chance of winning in Synergy?
Globally, we do see a higher chance. It's because they are already well familiar with the ERC way of application, and their quality of the PI was already judged. But that does not mean that they will win in a Synergy grant, because it's the group, it's evaluated as a whole. So there, you might not, or you might be. But again, you need to know with whom you are getting on board.
Thank you. Gidon Shelach Levi asks, how much should the different projects that are part of the proposal be independent in addition to their contribution to the shared research topic? Do we need to get letter of, this is a different question. Do we need to get letter of cooperation from scholars or institutes we want to cooperate with?
Mm-hmm. So the first part, now how different projects have to be independent, that's very difficult for me to answer. What I've seen in many successful grant applications is that you have to have a very coherent narrative. And in this narrative, how then these parts are put in, that's how actually you write together that grant application. If it's fully independent, if they could be again done only separately and they do not tie together, it's not a synergy grant. So here, just think of like you would have a necklace, like a narrative where every bead, every part has to very nicely go together to run well. And it's not a sequential thing either. So it's not that you are producing results in the first year or second year, and then you have a fourth PI who's waiting until the sixth year to do their research. Then again, you might wonder. It can be sometimes sequential, but again, you have to be judging that very carefully. And then the other one, the letter of cooperation, we ourselves never check these sort of letters, but be sure that you do have the approval of all the people that you are naming in your grant application. Because we have misconduct cases where, for example, a reviewer looks at the project and sees their name there and says, but I never gave my okay on it. I have no idea that I'm in the project. So be sure that whoever is in your grant application know about it. And then that letter, whether it's in form an email or whatever, that's you have to judge that. We are not checking per se on it. We are checking if there starts to be a misconduct case.
Thank you. Ori Hirschberg asked, is there a clear definition of synergy?
There is no clear definition of synergy. Definitely not. I think I try to say what is not more a synergy and whatever else there is, but I think the reviewers say when we see it, we recognize it instantly. So it's again this very close-knit, well-written narrative story where all parts of the puzzles fit together. That's how maybe I can define it.
Thank you. Moran Berkovich asks about the partner who is not situated in EU or AC. So regarding the host institution outside of the EU or AC, just to make sure I understand correctly, one investigator in the team can be funded by the Synergy grant despite being outside of the EU or AC, for example, the United States.
It's correct. It's exactly that. So one of the PIs can ask for whatever money they need and keep it there in that country where they will carry out the project. So yes, we do have US applications. And in fact, if you look at one of the first slides where I showed the 23 data, for example, we have 4 projects funded that were funded with PIs based in US. And then we have even a grant where it was funded in Australia, one in Singapore, and I think one in South Africa last year. But in the previous years too, we had grantees funded in all these countries or other countries too. So yes, definitely. And in addition, you can even have team members who are from countries outside of EU associated countries. But again, their necessity and why they're on the project has to be very well explained.
If I can take this question one step further, what is the minimum size, in your opinion, or based on your experience of this team? Can it be 3, so that 2 are from associated country member state and the third one from a third country, like the US, or would it be better to have 4?
There is no good question, no good answer to this because it doesn't matter. So what for us, and again, the institutions are not judged. The host institutions are never judged, just the persons. If you fulfill the eligibility criteria, having one PI from the EU associated country, the other one from elsewhere, it's okay to have 2. It's okay to have 3, it's okay to have 4. What is actually needed for your idea? Is it 3 or is it 4 or is it 2 people? That's the question you should pose. What actually aspects in science do you need to cover to be able to be successful? Not the numbers, not because you think it should be good to have 3 or 4.
Thank you. Anonymous entity asks, is the involvement of a less scientifically developed European country viewed favorably, or does it not matter?
Thank you for the question. It does not matter. The institutions are not evaluated at all. The person is evaluated, their scientific output. But if they come, for example, from a country that is that for them it's not that easy, for example, to publish in those very high-ranking journals, then do explain the context of your research. Explain why in your context you are so outstanding. And again, the group matters. You know, those 2, 3, or 4 people, and they look at the whole group in globality. We have a lot less applications, unfortunately, from the so-called widening countries. These are the countries that joined the EU after 2004, mainly Eastern European countries. They apply less to all our grants. They apply, and they are less successful too. They don't have that very long-standing tradition of writing grants, but it doesn't mean that they are not very good scientists. So again, if you think that that's the expert, that's the person that you need to work closely with for the coming years, then go for it.
Thank you. Yeah, and Vancha, sorry, asks, do groups of 4 PIs have a higher chance of winning than 3? Is there a breakdown of recipients by the size of the group?
Again, it's a wrong approach to the synergy grants. Now, to answer directly, there is no difference if you have 4 or 3 PIs applying. We see a bit of difference when only 2 PIs apply, but only a very small amount, a smaller proportion of the grant applications come from 2 PIs. We don't fully understand why. Probably it has to do with the research question that they want to tackle, but we don't see a real difference in success rate. Again, here, what do you need for your idea? Go for that, not because of the money or the very big envelope. It's a chance to do something that you dream. And then what are the people that you need? Is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 4? That's up to you.
Thank you. And Nirgov asks, you said the work has to be new, not a continuation of previous work, but preliminary results are based on previous work. So how to reconcile it?
Thank you for the question. Again, it's a very difficult, and it's always debated in the panel too. Again, it matters how bold your idea is. If it's very bold, they want to see some previous proof of concept, in the sense, not previous work where they believe that you can do it, that it's not science fiction that you are proposing there. So in that sense, it's very important. But if it's just a very natural continuation, so if you do this research, you know that you have to do this experiment and then the next one, and that's it. It's a very natural continuation. That's an incremental work. If you need a step change in thinking, but you could demonstrate that maybe it worked on something else, on other types of molecules or other things, and it can work and why it can work, then they can believe you. So this risk assessment, you know, of telling them, I think it can work because of this preliminary data, it is important. But how much you put in, it differs from science field to science field.
Thank you. Anonymous attendee asks if gender is an issue. Is it gender balance a criterion in the evaluation?
No, it's not at all. We would love to see more women applying. We see, you know, in the ERC grants that most of the women apply in the starting grants, where there are around 40%. Then there are less women in consolidators. And when we reach a more senior career stage, like advanced grants or even synergy grants, where a majority of applicants come from a more senior cohort, we see only around 30% of women applying, and it's around the same percentage that is getting funded. So to apply, but we don't have any policy on that. It's just a fact that that's what we are seeing.
Thank you. Moran Yasuo asks, can we provide letters of support in our application? For example, if you propose to use a large data set that is created in certain lab or provides specific cells, strains, can we provide letters from this lab to show their support?
No. It's not accessible to reviewers. They will see only part B1, part B2, and the annex of the budget table. That's it. So you have 5 pages and you have 15 pages to describe whatever you need to convince panels that you can do it. Nothing else is accessible to them. The ethics documents, there are some ethics documents that you should submit, but it's not evaluated. So the scientific evaluation, it does not look at them. The ethical evaluation comes after the scientific evaluation is done and you are selected for funding, then it goes to an ethics review committee, but that's a different matter. But again, the question was not on this, but I'm just explaining that no other documentation is read for the scientific evaluation.
Thank you. Adam Abramson asked, does the impact of the proposal include applications of the research or can only include basic scientific breakthroughs? Can a proposal include applied research?
Well, we have applied research funded in Synergy grants and in ERC in general. I mean, we have panels that deal with applied engineering or other things. The idea here again is how big that breakthrough is. We are not calling it basic research. So ERC does not fund basic research. So be attentive to this. We fund frontier research, and that's a big distinction exactly to make sure that we are covering both applied and basic research and whatever. The thing is how bold that idea is, how big change it makes.
Thank you. An anonymous attendee asked, just to confirm, we do not select the specific panel when we apply. This will be assigned based on the abstract and keywords. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the panel will not be chosen based on abstract keywords. The assignments to reviewers will be chosen based on that in the very first step. Every field in science and scholarship applies to a single panel. So 500 proposals, 600 proposals in a single panel. And then based on these keywords assigned to panel members. The panels and where they are assigned to are only formed after the first step filtering. So only in step 2. That's when we decide where to go.
And last question we have in the Q&A, unless someone else would like to ask more, is the question of Gidon Shelach Levi. Can one of the PIs be associated with a research institute which is not a university?
Definitely. If it's a legal entity, you can. I mean, we are very much welcoming industries or any type of other legal body. You're not applying as a physical person to any EU funding. You have to apply through an institution, and that institution doesn't have to be a university, but you are doing research. So it has to be a place, if you are applying with that, where you can carry out your research because they will be hosting you. They have to provide that support letter. Again, if you download the template, you will see what they are required to do to commit themselves that they are supporting you for the 6 years. So it has to be that sort of institution or company or whatever you want.
Thank you so very much, Agnes. It seems like there are no more questions. So thank you again for the very detailed and very well explained presentation and answers now to all the questions which popped out. As everyone could see, you have your email address at the end of the presentation, which will be disseminated later on, as well as the recording. So everyone will be able to hear again your explanations. Let me thank you very much for all the efforts. I see no more questions are posted in the last few seconds. And this is just to say thank you for participating very actively, asking many questions, and I hope to see many applications from Israel.
I hope so too, and thank you so much, and good luck to all of you, really. All the best.
Good luck and have a very nice day.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.